Hello and welcome on in. This is Beyond the Whistle. I'm your host, Drew Patrick. We have a fantastic show for you coming up here. We will have special guests, Jordan Jackson and Kieron Smeathers, to talk NBA Finals a little bit later on the show. But first, let's talk about the biggest news in sports. Well, this week, and that's the Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor mega fight, which was finalized and is actually happening on August 26th. Now, this fight was perceived to be absolutely impossible. And let's be honest, it is still absolutely impossible that this fight is actually happening in Las Vegas, and it's a boxing match between Mayweather and McGregor. Now, UFC president Dana White, he was really the mastermind in getting this together. It would be a junior middleweight limit of 154 pounds, and the fighters would use 10-ounce gloves, and the card would take place at the T-Mobile Arena. The fight will be broadcast on Showtime pay-per-view. Now, Dana White went on SportsCenter and on the four-letter network and talked about this fight, saying, quote, "We've been in negotiations for a while. Negotiations went smooth. Floyd is surrounded by some smart people, and we got this thing done. The impossible deal is now done." So, this fight is actually going to happen. A UFC fighter who's not really known for his boxing ability, Conor McGregor, but he's a great worker, and he will fight with the best of them, against the undefeated Floyd Mayweather. Look, I think this fight is going to be known for one of two things. The best pregame trash talk to ever happen before a boxing match you're going to see between McGregor and Mayweather. Because let's be honest, looking at both of these fighters, they're both very much about themselves and very much about talk. McGregor is the biggest talk, and back it up, and Floyd Mayweather has done that for his career as well. I don't know, though, looking at this fight, how McGregor is going to set up and is going to match up with Floyd Mayweather. Now, McGregor, in his UFC bouts, he's 21-3, and he was the first fighter to simultaneously hold two different divisions, their belts, and is one of the best mixed martial artists. He truly is one of the best mixed martial artists in the world, but he's against Floyd Mayweather, who's 49-0, looking for the big 5-0 in the. It's going to be the biggest pay-per-view event. It shouldn't be, because this isn't going to be a fight. It's 12 rounds. It's only probably going to last about 3. It's not going to be a knockout. It might actually go at 12, because I don't think McGregor is going to be able to come in contact. And I feel McGregor also is going to probably do something unintentionally dirty. And what I mean by that is he is training. His training is for mixed martial arts. It's not for boxing. And I don't know how much his boxing prowess is going to hold up. I don't. And I don't think it's going to. Floyd Mayweather is going to win this bout, and it's probably going to be unanimous. Conor McGregor, I think he'll hit stronger and harder than anyone Floyd Mayweather has ever been in the ring with, but Floyd Mayweather is known for dodging hits. He can't take the hits. He dances around the ring, and he'll get in a couple hits here and there, and then he'll continue to dance to drive his opponent crazy, and Conor McGregor is going to look foolish chasing after Floyd Mayweather. My money, all of my money is on Floyd Mayweather to win this bout. I'll have a little more later on. My parting shot is going to be my final points on this fight because I won't talk much more about it. Your best bet is George Tubby Schmidt, one of my other co-hosts here for Beyond the Whistle. He's your boxing / fighting guy / wrestling guy. He's going to have more insight than I will. But that's what I have here for my quick thoughts on the big fight, Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. Let's switch gears now, and let's talk the NHL, because we're going to talk NBA Finals, and we're going to talk the NBA Finals with Jordan and Kieron as soon as they come on. But first, I want to talk to you about the NHL, a couple things happening in the NHL Finals. The Stanley Cup Finals was fantastic this year. The playoffs were fantastic, full of high drama. Honestly, the NHL playoffs were more exciting to watch than the NBA playoffs because each and every playoff matchup mattered in the NHL. In the NBA, you pretty much knew what the guaranteed finals were going to be, and it happened to end up being that way. But there was only one other interesting series in the NBA, and that was the Celtics and the Wizards. And that battle was who was going to lose to Cleveland. The NBA or the NHL, the Stanley Cup playoffs were the most exciting playoffs in any sport I have seen in a while. All the matchups were beautiful. You had your fantastic upset with Nashville demolishing the favorite Chicago Blackhawks, and I mean demolishing them, and that was surprising because, yeah, you had the Warriors demolish their way through too, but that was expected. You did not expect the Nashville Predators to beat Chicago, and then they kept winning. They were so exciting. The first 4 games were stupid amazing to watch in the Stanley Cup Finals between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators. You had catfish, you had penguins, you had everything. You had Nashville. Honestly, they need to host the Stanley Cup playoffs more often because that was the coolest thing. They're the coolest hosts. Sorry, Pittsburgh. Yeah, you won. It was the coolest hosts of any playoff matchup ever because it's Nashville. Nashville did lose the series, and let's be honest, they lost the series come Game 5. When they lost 6-0 against the Penguins, their brain and their mentality was gone. Yes, it was a 2-0 loss, and for all intents and purposes, a 1-0 loss to Pittsburgh in Game 6, because empty net goals. But it was the most exciting series I have seen, and I'm a little angry. Not at the outcome, because you know what? As much as I give Pittsburgh crap, mainly because the last 4 years I spent in that area dealing with Pittsburgh fans, and sometimes they can be irrational. Yes, it's true. Pens fans can be irrational at times. But I will say Sidney Crosby is not your Conn Smythe winner. Sidney Crosby is the greatest player, or the best player in the NHL right now. He's not quite Wayne Gretzky. I don't think he'll get to Wayne Gretzky, but he is up there, slowly starting to cement his legacy next to him. Wayne Gretzky is still the greatest. This is not a LeBron, Michael Jordan debate I want to have between these two. But Sidney Crosby is a fantastic player. I'm not taking that away from him. What I am taking away, though, is he was not the most valuable player to his team. He's the best player, but I'm tired of these MVP not actually meaning what they mean. MVP should mean most valuable player. And to me, the most valuable player was Evgeny Malkin or Jake Gensel. Give it to the rookie. Or give it to Malkin, who I think was more of a catalyst for Pittsburgh to win that Stanley Cup, their second Stanley Cup in a row. Does this make Pittsburgh a dynasty? Well, we'll see. 2 in a row makes you a great organization, and at times they looked heads and tails better than every one they faced. I'm not quite saying dynasty until they get back there next year. If they get back there, even if they don't win next year, if they get back there next year, they're a dynasty. For me, dynasties are 3. You have to have 3. 3 appearances or 3. The number 3 has to be involved. Pittsburgh is the best organization in hockey right now. Hands down. They have the best player in hockey right now. Hands down. You should win every year. Hands down. Pittsburgh's a fantastic team. The difference between Washington and Pittsburgh is not the choking thing. Washington focuses too much on the regular season. Pittsburgh gets hot at the right time in the playoffs and attack. I don't want to take anything away from Nashville, though. You look at this series and you look at Nashville and the Predators, they're a team that I think can compete again. They were the last team to get in, and sometimes, as I mentioned just with Pittsburgh, it's better to be hot going into the playoffs than the best team going into the playoffs because they got hot at the right time. They perfected at the right time, but they peaked at the wrong time. They peaked in Game 4. They peaked in Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals. That's what I have to say. The other reason, going back to my original point here, the Conn Smythe shouldn't go to Sidney Crosby, is yes, I'm looking at that moment where Sidney Crosby was shoving PK Subban's head into the ground. You know what? If I thought there was any player who understood the importance of not smacking someone's head into the ground or head injuries, it would be Sidney Crosby, but I guess I'm wrong. That's not a value to your team. However, I do want to congratulate the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are the champs. They deserve it. And they're the favorite for next year. However, they're most likely going to be without their man, Marc-Andre Fleury. And why do I say that? Is because we have the Las Vegas Golden Knights joining the National Hockey League. And, of course, the expansion draft is coming up. Now, each team is only allowed to protect one goalie. You can protect a couple of players and one goalie. Pittsburgh's going to lose a goalie, and I don't think it should be Murray. It shouldn't be Murray. And Marc-Andre Fleury today waived his no-move clause in preparation for the expansion draft, which all but solidifies the fact that Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be a Golden Knight come next season. And I will bet anything that that's who they pick up. You want a goalie who has Stanley Cup experience, a goalie who is still very solid in the league. To jumpstart your organization, Marc-Andre Fleury is where you go. That's the guy you pick up. Pittsburgh's in trouble. There's a couple guys you can try to pick up from Pittsburgh. I think if they don't get Marc-Andre Fleury, I think Carl Hagelin, eventually ends up in Las Vegas. But Marc-Andre Fleury, I think he's gone. I think now he's gone. Now, I wanted to save this for Story Not a Story, but I want to do Story Not a Story with Jordan and Kieron, and I don't think either one of them watch hockey. I really don't. So my last point here, there's been rumors that Ilya Kovalchuk is eyeing a return to the National Hockey League. Now, he retired from the National Hockey League to go play back in his native Russia when he was 30. He's now 34. And he came off 2 championships over at SKA St. Petersburg in the Continental Hockey League. And the contract was only for 4 years. His contract is now over. of course, remember, he walked away when he went to go with his family in Russia. He walked away from a 15-year contract, the final 12 years of a 15-year contract, forfeiting $77 million to go home. I don't think he's coming back unless it's for 1 year and it's a team that he can guarantee a shot at a Stanley Cup. Ilya Kovalchuk might come back for Pittsburgh, but I don't think Pittsburgh would fit him on their team. He might come back to Chicago, but I don't think Chicago can fit him on their team. I don't think there's a place for Ilya Kovalchuk to come back into the National Hockey League and really attack. I don't think there's a spot that he fits on a team that's going to get him a Stanley Cup championship. And that's the only reason he'd come back. I think he's won 2 championships, so he knows how to win a championship now. In the Continental Hockey League over in Russia, I don't think he comes back unless it's with a team he can win a championship with. And maybe San Jose. But you know what? Could you imagine a line with the oldies Pat Marleau, Joe Thornton, and Ilya Kovalchuk? That would be like the Graybeard line is what I would call that. Granted, now I want to see it because I just talked myself into it, but that'd be the Graybeard line. And it wouldn't work. Ilya Kovalchuk, he's 34. He still can produce. He's produced over in Russia, but their quality of play does not match up to the NHL. He would only come back for a winner, and I don't think he fits on any of the winners. This is a pipe dream. I think Ilya Kovalchuk is staying in Russia. I don't think he's coming back. Okay, we're going to hit our first break. On the other side of it, we will have Jordan Jackson and Kieron Smeathers join me to talk NBA playoffs and a lot of NBA talk. They're the experts, not me. I pretend to be. But we're going to have them on the other side of this. Do not go anywhere. This is Beyond the Whistle. To stay up to date on all things Beyond the Whistle, follow us on Twitter at Beyond_Whistle or like us on Facebook at Beyond the Whistle with DTG.
Coaches, athletic directors, school administrators, bring your sports into the 21st century with Circle W Sports of Wellsboro. Stats, standings, rosters, team history, and more for both the web and mobile apps. From the creator of WellsboroAthletics.com and WellsboroFootball.com comes a new platform to get your sports team, club, organization, and athletes recognized. Circle W Sports, the new name in the game for high school sports. Call 570-337-3377 or email ed at CircleWSports.com or on the web at CircleWSports.com.
Welcome back to Beyond the Whistle. I'm Drew Patrick, and now I am joined by 2 people here who are more NBA experts than I claim to be. I'm joined by Mr. Jordan Jackson and Mr. Kieron Smeathers. Thank you guys both for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having us.
So let's start. We're about a week away from a week past the NBA Finals. The Warriors win in a 5-1 rout, pretty much. They routed their way through the playoffs. What were your biggest takeaways from the series?
So the Warriors just had a great season, an excellent postseason run. I was excited to see Kevin Durant get his first championship ring, and it really just capped off an excellent season that the Warriors began.
I was really excited to see how the Warriors would all come together. I mean, them being a 73-5-9 team, and they came together. Obviously, won the championship, and it was good to see a lot of talent on the floor all at the same time.
Probably the most star-studded finals we've had. Now, the biggest discussion has been about the Warriors and about them winning. Does this mean they're the greatest team of all time? I'm not completely sold on that. I think the regular season does matter to be considered for the greatest team of all time. They could be the greatest postseason team of all time, only one loss in the postseason. I may have given it to them had they not lost that one game to Cleveland.
So my thoughts, I think they have the potential to be arguably the greatest team we've ever seen. Given that last year they were 73-9, surpassing the record from the Bulls as the best regular season team, and acquiring Kevin Durant since and showing the postseason run, only losing one game to the Cavaliers in the finals. I think they're definitely in discussion for the greatest team of all time.
I don't think they're the best team of all time. I think if Kawhi doesn't get hurt, we're looking at a 7-game series, and I think they might take it. Coach Popovich, great game plan, and they exploited their matchups well. The Warriors don't have good bigs, and Zaza and JaVale McGee, and I think any team with dominant bigs and one or two good guards can beat them. I think Steph Curry, he's a defensive liability. And I think that would ultimately hurt them in the long run.
You can respond to that.
All right. Well, I think Steph is actually a great off-the-ball defender. I mean, he doesn't guard Kyrie Irving, which is, I think, his critique for his defensive liability. But he does create a lot of steals. And the overall system that he's fitting in defensively, I feel he plays a better role as an off-the-ball defender, where Clay is guarding the on-ball defender. And I think even with a healthy Kawhi, the Warriors still would have been able to surpass the Spurs. And I don't think that injury would hinder them with being the greatest team of all time.
One thing that I will say is I think that when you look at this team, this Warriors team, they are the greatest shooting team we've ever seen. That's true. So, you know what? I get why they could have been rusty in that first game against the Spurs, because they had smoked their way through, and you get complacent a little bit before they realize we're the best shooting team ever, and you come back, have that kind of comeback you have on the Spurs. Yes, Kawhi got hurt. I think that gives an excuse for Spurs fans. I don't know if that's actually the excuse for the Spurs. I don't think they match up. You have a lot of players who are on the wrong side of their little hoop of their age gap. They're on the wrong side for the Spurs. So I don't know if that's quite a 7-game series. They are the greatest shooting team I've seen, but I'm tired of also comparing the East to the West. I don't think the West is that great. When you look at the teams in the West, the Spurs, you take away one player and they're that much less than the Warriors. You look at other teams in the West, the Rockets, James Harden quit in his last game there. He just flat out quit. You look at Oklahoma City, I think Russell Westbrook is more about padding his stats than getting the team to win. That's why that record happened this year, and I said that throughout the year. You look at the Clippers, you're guaranteed they're going to lose in the playoffs. That's what they have done. You have always been the team that they're going to choke come playoff time. That's what's expected. I don't think the West is as good, and I don't think these playoffs had a premier matchup until the finals, which made the finals that much better, and then it didn't really turn into the series we wanted. But the most exciting series other than the NBA Finals, I think, was honestly the Celtics and the Wizards, and no one really cared about that series.
That's definitely that was the most exciting series. I think honestly, if Washington wins that series, they might go on to beat the Cavs. Honestly, I mean they have a really good shot too. I mean they got playmakers all across the board. I would honestly call Kyrie a liability in that series. I don't think he can guard John Wall. I don't think J.R. Smith can guard John Wall. I mean after that it's just dip and dime down low. Who do you want to give it to? So I think it'd be interesting to see that Washington-Cleveland 7-game matchup.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the West is the best. 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 I think the W
Yeah, I think we've definitely seen a shift with the West dominance and the East dominance. I think we're kind of at that point where it's about to switch, where it's going to be more even. I think the West has sort of been at the top for a while, and the East hasn't been as good. But now we're starting to see some players shift, and the teams develop in the East. The Celtics are a great team. Wizards are a great team. The Heat are developing, and the teams toward the bottom of the East are starting to fight for the top. And I think the West is getting a little complacent. So hopefully we can see an equalization in the future.
So, with the conversation of the NBA Finals and what we just witnessed, of course, the biggest two conversations are LeBron's legacy and KD's legacy. Let's start with the winner, Kevin Durant. Now, you guys both were going back and forth on Twitter, which was one of the reasons I brought you guys in here for this. But one of you is on the Kevin Durant side, one of you is against the Kevin Durant side. Before I go into my opinion, which doesn't matter, but let's start with you, Jordan.
So I've been a big Kevin Durant fan from the start, so I guess I have some bias there and some loyalty to him. But I think the move he made was a great decision for him. I mean, he's his own man. He was a free agent, emphasis on the free, so he can make a decision to go on any team he wants to go to. And the fact that he made a decision to fit on a team that was almost designed for him, the best shooting team, he's a great shooter, fits into the three. Him and Steph and Clay are great compliments to each other. I mean, I think I would have made the similar decision as well. And the fact that he actually, it's not like he just rode on the team and got the ring. He was a critical component, and I don't think they would have won this year without him because the Cavaliers were a great team. I think Cavaliers would repeat if they don't acquire Kevin Durant, and I think he proved that he was the best player in the finals this year, averaging 35. And I just think that solidifies that his decision was the right decision.
Now, before I go to you, Kieron, I want to point out the fact that, I mean, yeah, the Cavs weren't the number one seed in the East, but for all intents and purposes, they were the best team in the East throughout the year. Again, I think this Cleveland team is better than last year. Yeah. They just ran into a brick wall. Let's go to you, Kieron.
Well, obviously, I'm the one who's not on the Kevin Durant bandwagon here. Let's just start from the beginning here. Kevin Durant in OKC, 2015-2016 season, he averaged 28 points, 5 assists, 8 rebounds, and they got to the playoffs, and they got to Golden State. They were up 3-1, and they lost. Now let's go to 2016-2017 season. Kevin Durant averaged 25, 4, and 8, and obviously, so you see his actual performance declined, and let's go back to him in OKC. You know, I feel like you build a brand when you're the team star player. You know, your family is not only your actual family but the city, and you know, for him to leave, that's a tough one for the city. You know, he does a lot of community work in Oklahoma City, and you know, that's the same thing that happened with Shaq when Shaq left the Lakers. You know, Shaq was a big guy in the community, so that, you know, for the community, I can see why they have the hate, because he was just a big part. He gave them stuff. He gave them hope. You know, he gave them a dream, and that is, I mean, him leaving, you know, their dream's gone. I mean, he can always go back, but you know, they're gonna obviously look at him different. And let's go with the team standpoint. Kevin Durant, he was up 3-1, don't forget, and he left. Like, you gotta stick that one out. Sign a 1-year deal. See who they can bring in. Let's get a championship. You know, that's just like bailing on your brothers almost. You know, you grinded with them. They're adding pieces left and right in years prior. You know, and you ask them, they went out and got Victor Oladipo. I mean, he's not the best shooter, but he's a playmaker. You know, you have that lineup of Russ, Oladipo, and Durant. You know, anything's possible. I think they're right up there with the Warriors and the Spurs. So, you know, I think you just have to stick that one up. I think he definitely sold out. I think Cupcake is now a fitting name for him, and I mean that's my take on Kevin Durant.
So I'll say one thing about Kevin Durant, and I'll argue some of your points here too. One of the things you said is community. Remember, he was drafted by Seattle. They then moved. So, yeah, he had to move in his career once already, so it wasn't a new thing for him to go from another city to another. The second thing you said was if he comes back. Now, I'm not going to get into speculation of if he comes back, but LeBron was fine when he went back after he left and was hated by the league for his decision, quite literally his decision. But that's the point I want to make here is take sports out of the argument just for a second. When you talk about sports, I mean, it's going to get different because, as you mentioned, your teammates are your family. But let's take this from a business perspective. If you're offered a chance to do the job you love with the best possible group of people, that seems like a pretty good deal. And secondly, people have been mad at Golden State for making this decision. Look, the fact is, they did lose the year before. So when you lose the year before, your goal is to go into the offseason and figure out a way to get better. They made the best possible decision you could have made, getting the best player to make them a better team. I think it fit with Golden State. I mean, obviously it fit with Golden State. He's a champion. But I don't want to put this on you're a villain now in the league. Looking back at LeBron, too, when he made this, because, I mean, that's really the only comparison. You can maybe compare super teams to the Lakers or the Celtics. But, again, the Celtics, those were trades. Those players didn't choose to go to the Celtics. And for the Lakers, most of that was homegrown. The thing that was good about the Warriors is you look at the 3 stars they had, they built them. They built that team and then added the missing piece. It's exactly what you want to do as a dynasty. It's what the Patriots do in football. And that's the reason they're constantly at the top, comparing it to a different sport here. But I think the Warriors made the right move, and I think Kevin Durant, he's a champion. And you know what? Maybe he will go back to OKC. I don't know if they'll accept him like Cleveland accepted LeBron, because LeBron also had the homegrown aspect of it. KD, I mean, yeah, he went to Texas, but I don't think it's quite as homegrown as LeBron is. But sometimes you have to learn how to win to then go back and help. So I'm not going to villainize Kevin Durant for going and chasing his dream. And I don't think it's, quote-unquote, taking the easy way out either. I think it's taking the smart way, not quite taking the easy way.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the time spectrum a little bit wider, I think a lot of people are villainizing him, and you see a lot of hate now because they're looking at the now. But if you look at the past in the history with OKC, I mean, Durant and Westbrook were struggling a while to get to the finals. They made it to the finals when they were really young, and then they struggled to get back. And, you know, the organization wasn't really making that many moves. They acquired, like, Kevin Martin, and they acquired Kendrick Perkins. You know, they made some iffy moves, and the coaching was a bit shaky. They got rid of Scott. They got a college coach, you know, so it wasn't really stable in OKC. I think that was a problem for Durant. And, you know, him and Westbrook, they're great friends, but I don't think on the court they were working that well together. And I feel like that's why he made the move to go to the Warriors, because the organization was stable. He knew he'd fit in there. He knows Steve Kerr's a good coach, and he knows he's going to have a future, whereas in OKC it was a bit unstable.
Would you like to respond?
Yeah, I mean, you're up 3-1. I just think you definitely stick it out another year, give it another shot, and then if it's not working, you go back and you obviously leave the team. You know, I just think that's the point that people really can't get over, is you went to the team that you lost to. Besides the business part of it, like, yeah, it was better for him. Yeah, he's a great player. As much as I hate to say it, he's a good player. Great scorer. He's a walking bucket. But I just think you don't go to the team that you lost to, you know. And I mean, the LeBron situation, I didn't like that at all, because just the way he presented it, you know, he had that TV show on ESPN. He had a little segment there where he announced that he was going to Miami. Just say you're going to Miami. Don't leave a whole city waiting weeks and weeks to know the future. And so I think another difference with that is, you know, KD, when he left, I mean, yeah, he went to championship, but the team he went to, they're already proven. If he would have went home to Washington, I mean, no one would have said anything. No one would have hated him. Why? Because that's his home. But another thing is, like, the people that LeBron went to, they all came at the same time. Almost kind of like the Boston situation. they got KG at the same time. They got Rayon at the same time. So they didn't know what they had. It could have blown up. It could have been the worst decision of LeBron's career. But he was willing to try it. And same with Kevin Durant. But it really all he could have just passed the ball around the whole time and still probably won another championship. So I just think he just didn't want to put in the hard work and stuff like that. Anyway, anyone can shoot the open shot.
I mean, look, the fact is, and I want to ask this question. Is KD now more of a villain than LeBron was immediately after his decision in losing? Or because he won, does that make him more of a villain to you?
I think because he won, it makes him more of a villain. I mean, with LeBron, he lost, so people were more excited to see him lose, I think, than to see him win. And so that means, like, wow, they can lose. People in the league know they can lose. And it wasn't like, oh, they're gonna win. I mean, and they lost the last year they were together too, I think, right? And so, obviously they were beatable. We don't know yet if these Warriors can be beaten. They got beat one game, but in a 7-game series, that's tough, and that it might honestly hurt the NBA in the future because LeBron's getting older, and the Warriors are young, and that's just gonna be a problem. I don't think the teams in the East can beat the Warriors unless more firepower comes.
I don't know. I guess when I hear the word villain, it's just like a question of character. And I feel the way that Kevin Durant made the move was just a lot better than the way LeBron did his decision. Kevin Durant has always been characterized as soft or a nice guy. He didn't do this decision out of malice or to despite he didn't want to do anything bad to OKC or Westbrook. He felt bad about it. And you could see that when they played against him or at the All-Star game. Durant wasn't rubbing it in Westbrook's face. I think at the end of the day, he just had to make a choice, and I think the way he did it was the best way. And I don't think you can characterize someone like that as a villain.
One point I'll make here is with the whole villain thing is Kevin Durant was always a likable guy. He never. His MVP speech from a couple years ago is now a meme, but also that's remembered for he's a good guy. He's a good guy. So all of a sudden putting this on, and since when did being a nice person or being a good person all of a sudden equal being soft? Yeah. We see that in every sport. You have to be you can be a jerk on the court, on the field, on anything, but if you're a decent human being off, you get labeled soft or weak. Do you have any why is that?
I'm really not sure. I think it's just Kevin Durant, people probably label him soft because he couldn't even get 185 on the bench. So kind of the way he plays too. He's not really one to take a lot of contact during games and stuff. But sports in general, there's just people that are soft. I think people also label Tom Brady soft because he's got that rich guy persona. So I think it's definitely personality based because Kevin Durant, you look at him, you see his mom all the time. You might think he might be a little bit of a mama's boy. So that might be a soft trait to have. So I think it's definitely personality based.
So this conversation and this argument is probably going to go on until he makes another move or he retires. Let's be honest. The other argument that again will probably rage on forever, because when we have nothing to talk about as journalists, we start to compare current to past players, and no one gets it worse. Truly, no one gets it worse than LeBron James when it comes to comparing LeBron to Michael Jordan. Now, I'm going to ask the trigger question. Who is the greatest basketball player of all time?
In my opinion, Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. I think at this point, especially considering LeBron's career isn't even over, I would definitely put him as number 1, and I wouldn't even characterize LeBron as my number 2. In my opinion, I would have people such as Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, maybe even Larry Bird higher than him at this point in his career. I respect LeBron, everything he's done. He set a lot of records this year, and I've grown up watching him. He's great, but I have a lot of criticisms about him, so I would have to put Mike at the go right now.
I'd have to agree with Jordan. LeBron's he's definitely top. I'd say top 7 in the NBA, but Mike's definitely got it. I wouldn't put Kobe at number 2 per se, but I definitely just don't think LeBron with everything he's done, I just don't think he's above Michael Jordan.
I'll be the bad guy here. I do think he right now, looking at LeBron's game, people, when it comes to this conversation, people are stuck in the stats v stats. And I don't want to get into stats because, if your argument for Michael Jordan, and hopefully this isn't your guys' argument because I'm going to tear it down right now, your argument of 6 championships is not an argument. Robert Horry has 7. Is he the greatest player of all time? No. Bill Russell, who's a great player, has 11 championships, yet no one considers Bill Russell the greatest player of all time. Unless you're from that era, probably. I think when you look at LeBron James, I think skill for skill, he is better than Michael Jordan. He's bigger. He's tougher. I think he's a better defender than Michael Jordan was. And the other thing, the decision is a bad character move on LeBron. But walking away from the game, like Mr. Michael Jordan did, is an ego check, much like the decision for LeBron James that I'm not okay with. Ego check because he left to then go play baseball. To think that his skill set, his talent level, has excelled his sport and going into another one. And we saw how much of a disaster it was, Michael Jordan trying to play baseball. It sold tickets, but it did not turn out well. We're seeing it now with Mr. Timothy Tebow trying to play for the Mets. It's selling tickets for their minor teams, but he's not a player who's going to do anything in the major leagues. He did nothing. He won games and then the league quit on him because he didn't fit their system. But that's not the argument here. I think looking at LeBron James, and perhaps it's also because I'm 21, I didn't really grow up watching Michael Jordan, and that's another reason too. But LeBron James, he just to me seems heads and tails. The fact that he can make a difference like he did with Miami and Cleveland. Yes, they brought in stars, but I've seen him take over games like no one has done. Counterpoints?
So given my name is Jordan, I'm going to have to defend Michael Jordan. But on the baseball thing, I think that decision was more of an emotional decision given that his father had passed away and his father's first love was baseball and always wanted Michael to play. So I think that decision it was a mistake, but I think he did that out of emotion. So I wouldn't compare that to the decision. But my biggest criticism on LeBron is his ability to not seize the moment. I feel like he doesn't have that killer instinct that we've seen some of the greatest players of all time have. We've seen the magic hook shot. We've seen so many Kobe shots. Every kid growing up used to say Kobe. And we've seen all the Michael Jordan shots. But I don't see too many LeBron James shots. Or even though he's a passer, there's not too many times where you see LeBron make the game-winning pass. I feel like he's been bailed out. And the fact that he's lost 5 rings, lost 5 finals, is huge. If you look at all the other greats that we're talking about, top 10, top 15, they have not lost that many finals. And I just think that's a big hit on him for being the GOAT. I don't know. Even the ones he has won, the one in Miami where Ray Allen hits that shot, we can what if, whatever. If he doesn't hit that shot, they might not win that series against the Spurs. So I'm not too sure how I feel about LeBron being up in the categories with the likes of Michael Jordan and all these other.
Yeah, I'll hit some more points with where Jordan's coming from. I look at Michael. The way he changed the game. People growing up, they said Kobe. And you look or people growing up, Like Kobe, Kawhi, they mastered their game off Michael. Michael pretty much taught Kobe how to play basketball, and then Kobe pretty much taught Kawhi how to play. So in a sense, Kawhi and Kobe are MJ. And you look at kids today now; they're not looking to make their game after LeBron James. Who else in the league? They like Steph, they like Ross. So I just think that in a comparison to who's changing the game more too, I think Michael's still changing the game in the way he plays or the way he played, and just the way people can relate to him as well.
I think a thing with LeBron though too is he left. He has the homegrown aspect though with Cleveland, and that I think LeBron has a decent amount of likability now, more than what he had. Maybe not quite to the level of coming out of high school likability, but he's still one of the most likable people in the NBA. And another reason I really like LeBron as the greatest of all time is, he has changed the game too, for better or worse, we don't know, but he was the first instance of quote unquote going and making a super team. That has changed the game. He lost to the reason he lost. He started that reason. He's the product of his own demise. And I think he has changed the game in that respect. And people aren't as physical as LeBron James. And so they can't model their game after that. LeBron James, his physicality, I think his most underrated thing is his defensive ability. Yeah, he looked bad at times against Kevin Durant in the finals. He did. But he's still a much better defender, and I think just a much better teammate as well than a Michael Jordan who punched a teammate in the face. But you know what? That's really where I stand with LeBron James. Yeah, you look at the championships. Well, he's been to 8 straight championships. That's got to mean something. Or 7 straight championships. He has one back in 2007 when he brought that team by himself to the finals. I don't knock that one against him, just like you don't knock Allen Iverson's loss against him. Because Allen Iverson brought that team to the championship by himself. LeBron brought that 2007, I think it was, team to the finals by himself as a kid. Virtually a kid in the NBA. Now with whatever. But I think he was that instance that his athleticism has not ever been seen in the NBA, and I don't know if it will ever be seen.
Yeah, definitely. Those are very good points. I'd just like to hit on, in a sense, you can't really. I don't think an MJ, with the athletic ability, the physicality, how tall LeBron is, you can't say it's an MJ LeBron debate. I'd say the closest player we've ever seen to LeBron is, I'd say, Magic Johnson. I think that's more of a doable comparison. Obviously Magic won, but he may have won more. We don't know. His career ended early, but I think if you're gonna compare anything you compare those two. And I think another thing that might hinder LeBron in being in hurting him in the comparison with MJ is there's a stretch in LeBron's career where we joked and we said he didn't show up in the fourth quarter. And I think you look at MJ, that's primetime moments like Jay said. Those are when the big shots happen, and for LeBron to not be there in the fourth quarter, I think that's something that's definitely hurt him in his career.
Yeah, just another knock on LeBron. I think one of his biggest accomplishments that people usually talk about, as you said, were that he's been to 7 straight finals, and we've seen LeBron's face in the finals so many years. But I think that is kind of skewed because the East has been relatively weak over this time. The best team that we've seen face LeBron in the finals is probably the Celtics, and at this point, they were getting kind of old. All of them were on the downside of their careers. We saw them leave to the Nets the next year and do nothing. And that Celtics team took him 7 games. So I don't know if that 7 finals in a row is really a true accurate representation of how good LeBron was in the East or how bad the other teams were in the East. But on the other side, just to give some LeBron upside, I think it is difficult to compare players from different eras. Consider a lot of us don't get to see them play. Like, we've seen LeBron play a lot. And I will give that, watching LeBron as much as I have, he's definitely one of the most versatile players the NBA has ever seen, and probably the most athletic we've ever seen. And, I have a lot of respect for LeBron. I may be a LeBron hater, but I definitely respect his talents.
So I think what we learned here is we got a KD hater and a LeBron hater, and then me. Well, again, just like the KD debate, this debate's going to wage on well until the forever, even after LeBron's done, which, by the way, one last point for my good LeBron. I don't think this loss is actually really a knock on LeBron either. He still averaged a triple-double in the finals against the so-called greatest team of all time. He's still pretty good. So speaking of the result of the NBA Finals, we see what both teams, it's going to be an interesting offseason. LeBron saying, I have to rethink things after, not we as a team, which means speculation is going to happen of is he going to stay? Is he going to leave? He's staying, guys. He's not leaving Cleveland again. He's not doing that to Cleveland again. He has the ability to bring people into Cleveland. Never thought I'd say that, bringing people into Cleveland. As someone who went to school an hour or so away from Cleveland, I can tell you it's not an area that draws a lot of attention. But LeBron has had the ability to bring people in. What do the losers of the finals, the Cleveland Cavaliers, need to do in the offseason to figure out a way? Who do they need to bring in, or who do they need to get rid of to make them just that much better?
So I think the biggest problem for the Cavaliers is Kevin Love. His contract isn't over this year, so he's not going to be a free agent, but I think they need to package him in some kind of trade. He's been very inconsistent throughout the finals. Last year there was a joke that they didn't even need him to win, and I don't think they really did need him to win. And this year I didn't really see too many times where he was dominant in the game or needed. I feel like they could ship him and get, a Paul George, someone else where they can, develop a small ball type of team to match up with the Warriors, because at the end of the day, it's probably going to be those two in the finals. So I think they need to get rid of Love and either get a Paul George type of superstar or maybe get 2 or 3 other good players so that they can have a deeper bench and have some more consistency.
I think that, this is tough. They just got swept, or they didn't get swept, but they lost 4-1. And, they obviously have a lot of work to do. I think that definitely Kevin Love, they got to get rid of him. They got to get something for him. I think definitely the Cavs look back at it now. I think Kevin Love was their immediate. They weren't thinking about the future. And I think definitely the Andrew Wiggins trade, it helped them for the immediate, but I think it hurts them for the future. And so I think they definitely need to look into the long term when they are thinking about their next deal rather than the short term, because like I said, LeBron's only getting older, so they need to surround him with young athletic talent. They need some more sharpshooters. I think they also need to get rid of Amon Shumpert. I think defensively he's good. He gets up in people and bothers them, but just offensively he can't do anything. I think Cavs fans, every time we touch the ball, they're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And so I think that's definitely hurting them. And I think that's just the Cavs team in general. They have a bunch of talent that is good at one specific thing, like Kyle Korver, shooter. But, you don't see him playing very well on defense. So I think they need to go get young talent that are two-way players.
So the formula for the Cavs the last couple years have been pick up a washed-up superstar and see if they still have gas. That didn't work for Darren Williams this year. He was horrible in the finals. Richard Jefferson has been a good pickup for them, and I think he can stay on that team. They brought Kevin Love in because they thought Kevin Love could be a big man for them. Kevin Love's a good shooter. He's not a big man. And I think to beat a team like the Warriors, a team that likes to shoot, you have to bruise them a little bit. You need a big, and I don't know if there's a solid big you can pick up. One thing that, Kieron, I don't think you're going to like hearing, that has been thrown around there is Kevin Love being traded to the Knicks for Carmelo Anthony, among other picks as like probably draft picks in there as well. Carmelo has been a name I hear. If they can make that happen, make that happen. Also bring in maybe a washed-up Dwayne Wade, because let's be honest, he missed half the year. Washed-up Dwayne Wade. You have Kyrie, Wade, Carmelo, and LeBron. There's your four. There's your four you need. Plus, you get if you can find a big, or if Andrew Bogut can come back and actually be Andrew Bogut again, that's a good starting five. With Richard Jefferson right off the bench, yeah, contracts are going to get iffy in that, especially when you have Kyrie, LeBron, and Melo on a team. I think Dwayne Wade at this point would be willing to take some money back, but that's what I would do if I'm Cleveland. I don't go after Paul George. It's tempting, but I try to trade for Melo because I think Melo, the only way he would work on a super team, because Melo is quite, use the term loosely, but selfish when it comes to playing with a team. He was fine with the dream team of the Olympics, and I mean, those were subpar superstars for this past Olympics. But he was there, and he worked with them. And I think when LeBron James was there, it was LeBron, Kobe, and him, and Wade, and everyone who was on that team a couple of years ago. He worked fine. I think you need a level-headed guy like LeBron who would not be afraid to slap around Carmelo Anthony. And a guy, if you bring Wade there too, another guy who would not be afraid to slap around, despite Wade and Melo going in the same year in the draft. Those guys, plus keeping Kyrie, plus Andrew Bogut back, there's your starting five. There's a good possibility to compete.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I actually do like Melo moving to the Cavaliers. I think that could be a potentially good move for them. I think Melo has been a good player, a great player over his career as a number one option, but I think he could be a winner as a number two option. And I think LeBron could create some things for Melo that he hasn't really had throughout his career and can make him a more efficient player and less selfish.
Yeah, I'd hate to see Melo leave the Knicks. You know, I'm always a Melo follow-arounder, so when he was at the Nuggets, I was a Nuggets fan. I'm a Knicks fan now. I just don't want to buy another jersey. But I think Melo with Cleveland, I think that's a perfect fit because, I mean, you look at it, Melo and LeBron, they've been great friends for years. And, you know, him, Melo, LeBron, D. Wade, Chris Paul, they all go on vacation together. So, I mean, they could even work something out where they bring in Chris Paul, maybe like someone like Kyle Lowry. I don't know, sit JR off the bench, you know. I mean, JR won Sixth Man of the Year once, so that's definitely an option. You know, JR can come in when some of the stars are sitting and fog up some shots. You know, he's a microwave player, so he's either on or he's really off. But you got someone like Gordon Hayward who's just left his team. He's a free agent this year. So I mean, they definitely have options. I think what it all comes down to is money. Who wants to take the pay cut? I think definitely that's something LeBron's thinking of. You know, he could opt out, I think, and definitely take a pay cut and bring in another superstar or just a star that's going to fit their system. And that's definitely something I think everyone's looking at.
Well, also, let's look at my proposed trade from the other side, from the Knicks side. I think, Phil Jackson is toxic for the Knicks. He's toxic. You got to get rid of Phil. And I think the Phil and Melo butting heads thing is just awful. So I'm sure if this trade was up, and unfortunately I think the trade would have to be Kevin Love and a J.R. Smith plus a couple of draft picks to get it to actually go for Melo. Melo goes to Cleveland. I think Kevin Love fits with what the Knicks are trying to do, which they should change their focus from Carmelo to Kristaps Porzingis. He should be their main focus. You bring a guy like Kevin Love, who is a number two. He was number one in Minnesota It's not hard to be number one in Minnesota. He moves to New York. I think it also works for New York. I think New York is in a playoff team with Kevin Love on that team and a J.R. Smith on that team as well. I think that's a playoff team. They're still a ways away, the Knicks are. But I think that move makes both teams a playoff team, makes Cleveland arguably better than the Warriors with those superstars compared to the young guns, so to speak, for the Warriors. Also, with it being a trade, New York's not going to hate Carmelo the way Oklahoma State hates KD. So it's a win-win-win. So how about the winners, though? They have a big offseason as well with, of course, the biggest question being, well, Steph Curry's a free agent, and I'm sure he's going to get a lot of attention. Is there any chance that he leaves that team?
Yeah, there's absolutely no chance that Steph Curry leaves the Warriors. I mean, he's been the face of that organization. He brought them up. Bringing in Durant's probably the only guy, him and LeBron, the only guys you can bring in and make Steph a 2. So he's definitely a top five player in the NBA. The Warriors will throw any money at him to get him. And I think they'll have to adjust with their role players in order to compensate for the salary. So there's no chance that Steph leaves.
Yeah, I agree. There's absolutely no chance Steph leaves. I think he just built a brand. You think of Steph Curry, you think of Golden State, you think of the Splash Brothers, you think of his phenomenal shots, his amazing dribbling, you think of Under Armour, and I just think all that ties in. That's Steph Curry right there, and so there's no way I can see him leaving Golden State.
Yeah, simple as that. There's no way he's leaving, guys. The other thing that made, speaking of Steph Curry, that made this year very odd is people started not liking Steph Curry. I don't understand why his likability was in question, because we go back to the whole, if you're a good person off the court, you seem to be soft, and I feel like that it's now slowly starting to find its way to Steph Curry. And it shouldn't, because when you look at Curry and you look at his whole career going back to college, he really worked for every step of the way. And now that he's on the top and people see him as, oh, he's cocky. Oh, look at him just with the whole dumping thing in Cleveland that he did. People point to that and say, look, he's cocky, or we don't like him. Look at his whole career. He went to Davidson. He didn't go to Duke, North Carolina, a premier basketball school like his brother did. He went to a tiny little school, and really he worked with them, got them as far as they did, which was the, I believe the Elite Eight, which is as far as Davidson got. Sweet 16 or Elite Eight. But he put Davidson on the map. Then he went to the NBA. People were saying, oh, he's not going to work in the NBA. That guy is too small. His style of play is not going to work. And now, a couple years later, he got the right coach in Kerr. Jackson was not the coach for him. Not this Jackson, but... And now, Colin Cowherd, I believe, made this comparison. Steph Curry is like the Will Smith, the actor, Will Smith of the NBA. He's a likable guy who, you know what, at this point, if he's cocky, we can forgive him. What are your thoughts, guys, on Steph Curry and his likability?
I definitely think his likability is definitely taking a hinder. I think when it first started, okay, Steph, celebrations, those are cool. He's celebrating, he's turning around, the ball's going in. I think the problem is when he shoots and celebrates and the ball doesn't go in. It's like, that's a really arrogant person. I also think we kind of get accustomed to the mouthpiece. I mean, that's fine. That's not overboard. I think it's the point to where he's lying down in games and with a towel over his face. I think we saw that in the finals this year. A couple of my friends and I, we compare Steph to that kid in middle school, who thinks he's too good for the team a little bit almost with some of the antics that he does and just some of the way he acts. like I said, with all those antics, I think at first we forgave him, but at some point you got to start acting like you've been there before, and I think that's when I come to the problem with Steph Curry.
Yeah, I think Steph's a very likable person because he's very relatable. You know, he's a small guy who's worked hard to get his shot. He's all about the skills. You know, he doesn't really have a tremendous amount of athleticism. You know, he's just working hard and developing his skills. And I think at first with all the antics, with the celebrations, you know, it was fun and exciting. You know, we've never seen a type of player like this with be able to shoot threes off the dribble and do the crazy things he's been able to do. And I think I kind of share this comparison to Cam Newton, and they're from the same state. At first, you know, it's exciting. And, you know, it's cool to see him celebrate because you've never really seen something like this done before. But then after a while, you know, it sort of gets kind of annoying. You know, you've seen Steph do that, turn around and make the three. And, you know, I feel like it's kind of almost like a jealousy thing. Like, you don't like to see him winning all the time. And, you know, I think that's kind of playing in the fact where he's starting to get a lot more haters. And I think we've seen that with LeBron, too, over time. You just kind of develop an anti-following. So I don't think it's necessarily the likability. I think people are trying to hate on Steph Curry a little bit because he's been winning a lot. You know, before he was winning, no one was really questioning the celebrations, but now that he is, you know, everyone's kind of getting mad. So I think that's part of the reason.
I love the fact you pointed that out because, A, it's a good transition to my next topic. But before we get there, I agree with that 100%. People hate success. Unless it's their own or their team, people hate success. Who's the most hated player in the NFL? Tom Brady. Why? Because he's the most accomplished quarterback, probably the best quarterback we have ever seen. People are starting to hate in the NHL Sidney Crosby. Why? Because he's successful and has lifted the Stanley Cup the last 2 years. People don't like successful people. That's why LeBron gets a lot of hate. That's why KD's now getting hate. That's why Steph Curry's getting hate, because when it comes to this, people love the underdog. People don't like success unless it's their own or their team. The fans of those teams will stick to those players. The enemies will always go against. People don't like seeing this much success from a player who knows it, too. And that's with Curry. He knows he's good. And that's the thing that rubs people the wrong way. But I think at this point he's earned that. He's earned that right to be cocky. I mean, I don't want to say he came from nothing because that's not true. He didn't come from nothing. But his career trajectory, for all intents and purposes, he was a long shot in the NBA. He was, I want to say the seventh, 9, or 11. Those are the numbers in my head of draft pick.
I think he was the fourth point guard drafted.
And they're all regretting it now.
Yeah.
But going into that point I made that people hate success, including myself, dynasties. I have said forever that I truly think that dynasties, now this matchup that we had in the finals has been the same matchup for the last 3 years. LeBron James is a dynasty of his own right, has been in the NBA finals the last 7 years. Do dynasties make leagues weak?
No, I don't think so. I like them. I do. I think it gets people watching. It's like, are these people going to win it again? And you look at basketball for a standpoint. I think of college basketball in that point. First thing that comes to mind is UConn Huskies. The girls, they're phenomenal. Their coach is amazing, and they're always in the finals. But this year, I mean, they lost. They lost to Mississippi State, and I think that gets people watching. You get that ESPN notification. Oh, UConn Huskies down at half. Wow, I'm gonna tune into that game. You're watching the Super Bowl, right? You see the Patriots versus the Giants. Oh my goodness. The Giants just threw a long pass to who was it? To David Tyree, yeah. And what people are astounded when the Giants beat the Patriots. So I honestly think it's great. I think it's great for the league. I think it's great for attendance. I don't know. I like them.
Yeah, I think dynasties are honestly very impressive. You know, we take for granted how great these teams are, but it's not easy to repeat. And, you know, when you see a team do it year after year after year, there's problems with, like, salaries, you know, team chemistry, you know, keeping the team together and all of that. So I think it's very impressive to see teams go on these runs. And I also think it sets a bar for everyone else to reach. And then it makes the win so much more – well, it makes the win so much better. You know, when you see an underdog take down a team who's won, like, 5 championships in a row – I feel like that's very memorable, and you know, people take that for a long time down the road. And you know, you always look back on those comeback wins on those great teams.
To both of your point, though, I will say that your points where you love when you see dynasties fall, or you love when you see the big team fall. For example, you mentioned the UConn women's basketball team. Dynasties are good when the league is not noticed as much, or low on the totem pole. For women's basketball, women's college basketball, it's not watched as much as men's basketball. Watching UConn gives people a reason to watch. Yes, a dynasty works in that situation. You look at the Pittsburgh Penguins. They won the Stanley Cup for the 2nd straight year. That gets people to start watching the NHL playoffs. It also helped that it was every other day between this and the NBA, and it was fun to go back and forth between the two. But when you look at the NBA, and the NBA is in a different situation, even the NFL, the Patriots, it's abysmal to watch the AFC East. And as a person who has a team in the AFC East, I can tell you it's abysmal to watch that division play because you already know the outcome. And that is disheartening as a sports fan. When I look at the NBA, I mentioned this with the playoffs. It was almost a guarantee what the finals were going to be. Yeah, you had a couple blips here and there. The Wizards-Celtics series was a fun series, but what was everyone saying? Well, the winner of this series is going to lose to the Cavs. It's really the series to see who is going to lose. The Cavs weren't the 1 seed, but yes, they were the best team in the East. To me, it takes a little bit away from the league and the NBA when you know the outcome of the playoffs. The playoffs isn't fun anymore to watch. And so when you have a game or a series between the Raptors and whoever, you're not really going to tune into that unless it's on or you're a diehard NBA fan or that's your team. Jordan's pumping his chest over there. But the point is you're a diehard NBA fan. So when you look at a casual fan, I don't think dynasties are great for leagues. They're great to create heroes and villains. I don't think they're great for the integrity of the league.
I'm with you and I'm not. I think they're good. I mean, I'm just thinking, 2 teams in mind is, I mean, there's a 30 for 30 on it right now, but I'm thinking about like the Celtics, the Lakers, way back in the day. I'm thinking, they're bad. We got Magic, we got Bird, like that. I mean, that's what it's all about right there. Like that. I mean, I think when the problem it becomes is when there's one team that's like the dynasty. I mean, every other team just sucks. I think that's when the problem occurs. Though when there's 2 teams in the same league just battling. I love it. That is what sports is all about.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, just as a sports fan, you want to see the 2 best teams facing off against each other, or the 2 best available teams. And like with dynasties, that's what you get. You get a really, really great team going against other great teams, and it's usually exciting. I would agree with Kieron. You don't want to see one team just dominate the league for an extended period of time, but usually you don't see that. We've seen teams that are really good, but it's not like they just walk through their dynasty. They get challenged and checked throughout their dynasty, and I think that's what makes it fun to watch.
All right, so we're going to hit a quick break. When we come back, it's everyone's favorite game, Story Not a Story, and these 2 will join me for that. Don't go anywhere. This is Beyond the Whistle.
You're listening to Beyond the Whistle with Drew Patrick. To stay up to date on the show, follow us on Twitter at Beyond_Whistle and like us on Facebook at Beyond the Whistle with Drew Patrick. Keep listening.
Welcome back to Beyond the Whistle with Drew Patrick. I'm still joined by Jordan Jackson and Kieron Smeathers. And guys, we're going to play the game that's sweeping the nation. By the nation, I mean literally just me. Story, not a story. The first story, Gordon Hayward. More likely, Gordon Hayward's wife posted a picture on the social media site known as Instagram of her holding their daughter, but the daughter was wearing a Celtics-style shirt. Story, not a story.
I think this is definitely a story. I think the Celtics are trying to make some big moves this year. They got the #1 draft pick, but I don't think they're going to use that draft pick. I think they're trying to make a big move with some all-stars, so we'll see what happens there.
I'm definitely gonna have to. I'll say story too. I think, it's another team's gear. Why couldn't he get that shirt in the Jazz uniform? Like, I don't know. I think it's definitely a story for me. She might be hinting at something we don't know, or maybe we could just be putting stuff in our minds. I don't know.
Wives love to drop hints. When LeBron went back to Cleveland, there was that leak that, they're moving their stuff. The wives like to drop hints, and I think it'd be wise for the Celtics to go after Gordon Hayward. Get another guy. I think Isaiah Thomas, eventually they'll get rid of him. But if you're in win now mode, yeah, go get him. Go get as much as you can. I don't think the post is a story, but I think the idea of him going to the Celtics, I would like. Moving on, next story, not a story. Man, the craziness that is the Ball family and LeVar Ball and Lonzo Ball. But there was recently a commercial, a Father's Day commercial for Foot Locker about what their fathers have done for you. And, of course, it was taken over by Mr. Lonzo Ball.
Of course, there's that big day when your dad berates your high school coach in front of an entire crowd for not getting you enough touches.
Waking up early to drive to all those faraway tournaments.
Or that special moment when your dad sits you down and tells you where you're going to college. Copyright your name to make it a part of a family lifestyle brand. Went on First Take and shouted back and forth with Stephen A. Smith about how you're already better than the reigning league MVP.
Story, not a story, this commercial.
Well, I think we all can agree that LeVar Ball as a whole has been a story for this whole past year and for all of social media. I think he's hurting his son Lonzo Ball, but I think this commercial kind of hints at the humor behind it and that Lonzo understands that his dad's a little crazy. So I think this is a funny story.
I think this is irrelevant. I'm interested in what he said. I thought it was funny. I just really don't care. It's
So playing off that, if you're the Celtics, now you touched it, you think they're going to get rid of it, the first pick overall, with possibly the greatest trade in Celtics history now is not to get Kevin Durant and Ray Allen, it's getting rid of them and getting all these first picks. But Markelle Fultz seems to be the name. He played 9 games, or he won 9 games. If you are the Celtics, or if you're the Celtics, do you trade, pick Markelle Fultz, or maybe go Lonzo Ball just to see what would happen? I know his dad would probably go into holdout mode, John Elway style, Eli Manning style. But if you're the Celtics, what do you do?
I really think the Celtics can do no wrong with this pick. I think Lonzo Ball and Markelle Fultz are almost equivalent. I think either way you're getting a great player just with different sets of skills. I think the whole LeVar Ball thing kind of puts a hindrance on Lonzo a little bit with that pick. I don't know if they want that media attention, but in my opinion, I think they're shipping this pick, so I don't think it really matters which pick they take.
I think for the organization, I think picking Markel Fultz is better because Fultz is more of like their branded guy. You know, you think about it, more humble, I guess, in a way, just the way he plays. He's not too flashy. You know, he gets the job done. I'd rather see Lonzo out in Showtime with the Lakers. I think that right there, that's gonna sell some tickets, and I think that's better for. I think it's just overall better for both organizations, for Fultz to go to the Celtics and Ball to go to the Lakers.
If Ball does go to the Lakers real quick, they're going to break records in terms of attendance for the Summer League. People are going to want to see how good, I mean, we've heard his daddy talk. We want to see how good he is, especially in La La Land out there with the Lakers.
I just have a side note. I would not like to see Lonzo Ball in the Lakers because I'm a huge D'Angelo Russell fan. I think they're going to end up trading him away if they get Lonzo Ball, so hopefully that doesn't happen.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think everyone's gonna be excited to see Lonzo Ball if he goes to the Lakers. My problem with it is he's got some shoes to fill. I mean, you've got someone talking so big about you, and I mean, what if he comes out his first game and doesn't produce? I mean, that's the only way I see a problem.
He better hope he has a great first game. Because if that first game is bad, like your next couple can be great. If that first game is bad, which everyone's going to have their eyes on, it's not going to go well. If you're the Lakers or if you're any organization, do you want to go after Lonzo Ball knowing the distractions that's going to come with it?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, there's a lot of pressure riding on Lonzo. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think it's necessarily the media attention. I think what's hurting Lonzo the most is that he might not be able to focus on, his game. He's going to be focused on trying to do too much. Or in his type of style game, is playmaking. So if he's trying to do too much with a team that's not there, it might not look as good. So I think he has a lot of pressure and he has big shoes to fill. I don't know if those shoes are going to be the ball fours or whatever he created, but we'll see what happens.
The closest thing I can think about this is probably I'm gonna have to go with Johnny Football. I mean, his distractions off the field, I mean, that hindered what he did on the field. So you got to look at it in a sense of that way. With all that immediate attention, is that going to be a distraction towards Lonzo's playing? We don't know yet. And I mean, it wasn't a factor at UCLA, but then again, it wasn't a factor for Johnny at Texas A&M. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'd rather it be outside distraction off the court rather than on the court distractions, because you look at Chad Johnson, for example. I mean, on the field he was just a distraction himself. His celebrations, they're all about me almost. So it's like, and that really hurt his team. So you just gotta. I'd rather it be off court distraction than on the court distraction.
A point of that too. It's not like Lonzo's off the court things are his own either. You can't control your family. Johnny Manziel, he dug his own grave with drug abuse and that stuff, and he's getting help with it, but he did dig his own grave. Lonzo's not digging that grave. His father's digging that grave, and hopefully he doesn't get a push. So, more off-season news. The other thing being free agency coming up. It's a big year, and Chris Paul is the big name. He said that he's going to do interviews with the Spurs, the Rockets, and the Nuggets. Story, not a story.
I think this could be a great story, actually. I think Chris Paul, this could be a great story if he goes to the Spurs. I think this could, shake up the West a little bit and give the Warriors, a little worry. I think him, Kawhi, and LaMarcus Aldridge could be a great three. And, this past year, the Spurs were a great team, and LaMarcus really hadn't figured it out yet. And I think Chris Paul could help him figure out his game, and with the Popovich system and Chris Paul being such a great mind on the court, I think him and Pop could create, a great relationship. So I think this is a big story, and if this could happen, NBA is going to be in a different state than it is this year.
I'm going to say it's a story. I also think it's too early to tell how big of a story it is. Definitely a story, though. I think it's all about when does Chris Paul want to win. I mean, those teams you mentioned, Spurs, Rockets, and Nuggets, if he goes to Nuggets, I don't see them competing with the Warriors right away. I really don't. And so I think it's all a testament of, do I win right now or do I win later? My personal preference, I'd honestly like to see Chris Paul go back to New Orleans, and here's why. You look at who they have. They have DeMarcus Cousins, Anthony Davis. You add Chris Paul to the mix, give maybe Gordon Hayward in free agency. I mean, that's a pretty solid team to go out and compete with.
Do you have a response?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I was going to add to that, too. I was reading about him moving to the Pelicans as well, and I think that could be a great move. You know, they have two great bigs, and this year we didn't really get to see them operate too well together because their backcourt of Drew Holiday and I don't even know who weren't very well. So I think adding a Chris Paul throwing lobs to Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins and, you know, helping facilitate their game could you know, maybe even shift the style of game because we're seeing a small ball type of game, and those two bigs, you know, are very talented and very good players. So maybe if Chris Paul, you know, helps them out, they could shift the style of play we're seeing in the game today.
I said DeMarcus Cousins is the only back-to-the-basket big we have left here in the NBA. Maybe you also have Dwight Howard, but Dwight Howard's on the wrong side of his career. Here's the reason I don't think it would work in New Orleans, is because even if you bring in a Gordon Hayward, is because then you have Gordon Hayward, Chris Paul, Anthony Davis, and Boogie Cousins. They don't have any sort of momentous playoff experience. What made Miami so good? Dwayne Wade had that playoff experience. LeBron James had that playoff experience, that finals experience. One winning, one getting there but not quite tasting it. Chris Paul hasn't been there. Cousins hasn't been there. Davis, I don't think, has been to the playoffs. The reason Kevin Love wasn't great his first season in Cleveland is he didn't know what the playoffs were. So that's why I don't think it would work. It'd be a long-term solution. It would not be a short, quick turnaround if he goes to New Orleans. I don't think he stays in L.A. unless they get rid of Blake Griffin. I really don't. The name or the other name is DeAndre Jordan. That there's been rumors that Chris Paul said he'll stay if DeAndre Jordan is gone. That I've heard that rumor as well. So let's talk about that rumor because it is story, not a story. The fact that Chris Paul might only come back to the Clippers if DeAndre Jordan is gone, story, not a story.
I'm not really sure that's a story. I honestly I don't think Chris Paul's going to stay in LA. I really don't think he is. I feel like he wants to win, and he's always really wanted to win. I don't think he's a player that's about statistics at all or individual accolades. He's really a player who's been striving to win for so long, and the Clippers have struggled for I don't even know how many years. So I think he's going to be out. So I don't think there's a story on him staying in LA.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a story. I think he just said that just so because he knows they're not going to get rid of DeAndre. So I mean, that's a pretty good predicament right there. Well, I just want to get back to the New Orleans thing. I think I don't remember if the Warriors had any playoff experience either. I think they just kind of shot out of the gap and surprised everyone when they came out shooting lights out. So I think right now it's a hit or miss with all the people we named. And I forgot we could even add J.J. Redick into that free agency and throwing him on the New Orleans Pelicans. So I think that it's not a story, but I think that New Orleans should definitely get this stuff done.
Let's switch gears now and go to the NFL, where trolling is reigning supreme. The New England Patriots, they got their Super Bowl rings that have 283 diamonds in it. First of all, that's a crap ton of diamonds. Second of all, that number is significant for us journalist people. Why? Because, of course, they were trailing 28-3 283, 28-3 before their gracious comeback. Is this trolling the Falcons?
Yeah, this is definitely trolling the Falcons. This is probably the greatest comeback we've seen in NFL history. Maybe the greatest team, greatest quarterback. So I know they're putting these diamonds on there to show the Falcons where they're at on the totem pole. I think it's kind of amusing. I'm not too big of an NFL guy, but I think this is a pretty funny story.
I'm going to have to go with not a story. I think it's a story if you want to make it one. But in all honesty, I don't think the Falcons care because, they lost. I'm pretty sure they get second place rings. I think that's a thing. Yeah, and pretty much half the players just throw them somewhere anyway. They're not gonna look at them. So I don't think this is a story. I think the Patriots want it to be one, get some publicity out there, but no one really cares.
You just explained half of my job. Make stories out of stuff that probably is not a story. How do you know it's trolling, though, Drew Patrick? It could just be the Patriots want to remember that's where they were. No, it's full-on saying we beat you, but I agree with you, Kieron. I don't think the Falcons really care. They're probably mad that they have a Super Bowl ring in the first place. That's what you should be mad about. Don't be mad about the number of diamonds in said ring. The other big NFL news, of course, or rather not news, is the fact that Colin Kaepernick is still sitting at home. I've had this discussion, of course, those of you who don't know, Colin Kaepernick, of course, in the season, knelt during the national anthem as a way to bring awareness to oppression of African-American individuals. I've talked with veterans. I've talked with my other broadcast partner. He's a veteran. He served in Iraq for a couple years. He said he didn't have an issue with Colin Kaepernick doing it, and that's the opinion I trust. However, I am not black. You guys grew up, small town, it's different, but I want to before we get into what team do we think would be the best spot for him, the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, what are your thoughts on it? I'll start with you, Jordan.
I kind of like Colin Kaepernick, taking a stand. It's been pretty rough these past couple of years with the police brutality and, just the racial issues. So I think him taking a stand from, a person that we've seen in the NFL Super Bowl, everyone can see these famous people or famous athletes. I think they should start taking a stand and voicing their opinions a little bit more because they're visual, Other people can say things and they're not really heard, but these types of people can say things and they move and create movements. So I think maybe it might have been the best way to do it. I don't know, kneeling during the national anthem, but the whole idea behind it I thought was great. And, I respect Colin Kaepernick and all the efforts that he's done.
I think I'm torn because I feel like what he did was wrong, but the message he's trying to pursue is right. So I'm pretty torn by that. Colin, was a great athlete, and I feel like people like that can definitely get a message to a crowd, like Jay said, rather than the ordinary person. You talk to one of the points I like to say is Colin's not kneeling to disrespect all the veterans that have served because Colin knows he would not be one of the people doing it, going out and fighting for the country. So I think he has the utmost respect for them. And, people always say that the veterans, they go out and fight for the country. Well, they weren't going out to fight for someone not kneeling for the national anthem. So that's where the tough thing comes out of my mind.
I've always said, looking at Colin Kaepernick, I didn't have an issue with the initial thing. But then I started to have issues come the pig socks, which were at practice. He kept wearing socks with police officers as cartoon pigs. Then the not voting thing. Does that take away from his perspective when he has those other things as well? It's a message that needs to be heard, especially in this day and age of of the world, but does that take away from it when he adds this other stuff as well?
Yeah, I definitely think it takes away from it because his initial purpose was to do good. And then by him wearing the pig socks, it's pretty much saying that all cops are pigs. And so it kind of goes back to the message, the first message, and it's like, how valid is he being with the kneeling during the national anthem? Is he just doing it to disrespect the country, or is he doing it to get the message out? So it's kind of like a positive or one step forward, two steps back type of thing. So I think people definitely will focus on the negative more than the positive. It's always been that way with athletes. Definitely one thing that comes to mind is like the Michael Vick thing. Is with the dogs, he had a bunch of dogs, the pit bulls they were fighting, and then after he admitted he done wrong, he served his time in jail, but then when he got out, he went in and helped animals, like animal care, but people weren't too highly to speak about that. They thought it was kind of fake. He was just doing it, but maybe he was really genuine. We don't know, and that's kind of the same with the Colin Kaepernick thing.
Yeah, as I said before, these athletes are in the spotlight, and I think the negatives get highlighted more than the positives, as I did with Kieron. So I think they need to be more careful with their emotions. Being African American was a tough time, and I feel where Colin is coming from. But I think he needs to be smarter with his decisions and understand that, everyone's watching him, what he's doing. So the things with the pig socks are definitely not a good message, especially when your original purpose was positive. So just to take on Kieron's thing, I think he took one great step forward and then took two steps back, where now everyone's questioning, what was his original message.
Yeah, the validity starts to get questioned here. So Colin Kaepernick's a free agent, but he still has, great athletic prowess, and he still can be a viable quarterback. If not maybe starter, because his team did go 2-14, he's still a viable backup. One of the teams that was brought out to where he could fit, and then I'll get your opinion. I know you're not really an NFL guy there, Jordan, but I'll give my reasoning why, and as a sports person, you should be able to get this. The best team, I think, for him, the Dallas Cowboys. Why the Dallas Cowboys? Because you look at that owner, Jerry Jones, he's always been about second chances. Maybe for some people who don't deserve it, a la Greg Hardy, but he's been the guy to give people second chances. Also, there will not be controversy in Dallas for a starting quarterback. Dak Prescott was phenomenal last year and ran Tony Romo out of town. I think it's a perfect spot. Colin Kaepernick can mold his game too and be probably a more athletic version of Dak Prescott. Doesn't have the same brain as Dak Prescott, but I think he fits into that system with an owner who loves to give second chances and a team where he's not pressured to be the star. I think Dallas fits. How about you guys?
My issue with that, Drew, is if anything was to happen to Dak, I think Jerry Jones' first person he's going to call is Tony Romo. So I think that Colin going to that team, it's like, is he really the backup? If any quarterback behind Dak, are they really the backup? Do they really have trust in the quarterbacks after Dak Prescott? I think definitely Tony Romo is going to be the first person they call after the game's over. I'm on a different take. I see him more as a Houston Texans type of guy, and here's why. I think the Houston Texans were one quarterback away from, or they were just a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contending team last year. Obviously, they made the playoffs, but who they have? Tom Savage, and they had Brock Osweiler. Like, are they? I look at them. I just don't see winners. And now they have Deshaun Watson, and if anything, they bring in Colin to maybe mentor. Obviously he took a knee and stuff, but to mentor him in a football standpoint, because believe it or not, Colin was in a Super Bowl a couple years ago, so he has a winning mentality. He knows how to win, and he's a viable second option. Maybe he could even beat out Deshaun. That's a stretch, but definitely a viable second option because he's a winner. He's been in the Super Bowl. He knows what he's doing, and I still think the kid can play.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Kieron. I think Colin Kaepernick's playoff experience could help a rookie quarterback like Deshaun Watson take a Super Bowl-ready team. And one of my fellow friends actually plays for the Texans, so if he could help him get a ring, that'd be pretty dope.
I think you guys both had people from your universities get drafted this year. So yeah, there's a story for you guys both. So our final story, not a story here, as we're gonna get back into a lighter topic. So I have an image here for you guys. That is an image of Darren Baker. It was from a couple years ago. Darren Baker was a bat boy for the San Francisco Giants. And Darren Baker is the son of the current Nationals coach, Dusty Baker. Darren Baker was just drafted by the Nationals in the later rounds where you make your PR picks. But the kid that was in I believe a playoff game where he went to go get the bat, but the play was still happening, and he was snatched out of the air to get him out of the way before he was absolutely clobbered by other runners for Darren Baker there. But now he is a member of his dad's team. Story, not a story.
Definitely story. I think you look at just family history in sports, and that's definitely a story. We like to see stuff like that go on in sports today, and I think it's great for the sports world.
Yeah, I think this is a great story. You know, sports are constantly inspiring kids everywhere to do their best and work hard and become the athletes they look up to. So I think giving this kid an opportunity like this shows other kids, you know, maybe if I work hard, I could be Darren Baker and get drafted by drafted by MLB team.
And one final MLB story before we get into our final takes. The Chicago Cubs I believe the 19th round drafted Chris Singleton, who was the son of one of the victims at the Charleston shooting. He was the one who, he became the face of that program in Charleston, the face of the incident, being as strong as he was after the horrible incident that happened there. He's now a Chicago Cub, or part of the Cubs organization. This one's story, not a story.
The story for sure. I'm not too really read and caught up with the story, but it's definitely a story. I think it's good for him to live out his dream and to play baseball.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a story. It's great to see him excel through a tragedy like that. You know, get a great opportunity to play for an MLB team. You know, it just kind of brightens up the losses that we've had.
And his drafting is 3 days before the 2-year anniversary of the shooting at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston. This is why I'm a Cubs fan and wear a Cubs shirt, man. I love that team. I dealt with the losing, and I had one happy moment last year. The rest of my teams, though, are garbage. But now we get into the final segment here, which is your final parting shot, which just can be really your topic. It can be about whatever you want, whoever you want. It can be a shout out if you want it to be. Your final parting shot here.
First off, Drew, I'd just like to thank you for letting me come on today and share my views on sports. It's always been a pleasure. But I'd like to get into Johnny Manziel. You know, I truly believe this guy still has it today, and I just want an NFL team to give him a shot. You know, he's on Instagram, posting his workout. He looks like his arm's nice, and I'm excited to see what he can do, and hopefully a team will give him a shot.
So I kind of want to talk about the NBA fashion. We're having these MVP talks about Russell Westbrook and James Harden, maybe Kawhi Leonard, but probably not. But I actually want to give an MVP award to Russell Westbrook for best dressed. You know, he's constantly doing his own thing, inspiring everyone to dress the way they want. As a man of fashion as myself, you know, I can appreciate that. So even if he doesn't win the MVP, which I don't think he will, I think James Harden's got it. I think he wins MVP for best dressed.
Well, I want to say again, thank you guys both for coming on Beyond the Whistle. I hope you guys had a good time. You have more insight on the NBA than I do. I claim to have insight. I don't. My parting shot here goes back to my first segment before these guys got here. Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. That fight's coming August 26th. Yes, don't fall in love with the hype for this fight because it's not going to be much of a fight. Conor McGregor is a great fighter, but he's a great... He's not a boxer, and Floyd Mayweather's going to dance around like Floyd Mayweather does. If Conor McGregor gets one hit, though, it's gonna daze, but I think he only will muster up that one hit. It's not going to be a contest. I'm telling you that it's going to be sad to watch and a waste of your money. Watch the replay. Don't watch the full thing. That's all I got. Thank you guys so much for coming on Beyond the Whistle. If you guys want to download this podcast, it is on iTunes at Beyond the Whistle with Drew Patrick. Also, come back next week as Tubby. He'll have more insight for the McGregor-Mayweather fight on his end. Again, special thank you, Jordan Jackson, Kieron, Smeathers. You guys are fantastic. It's your third thank you. And I will see you guys, or you guys, next time. Thanks for listening.